Real people. Real stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an interesting feature called My Story. And here's a man with a story and a half, Jim Petruzzi. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Peter.
An Australian, yes?
I am indeed, originally from Australia, yes.
And you're a big star in Australia, weren't you, as a sportsman?
I did okay, yeah. I reached a high level of sports. I was quite fortunate enough to apply myself, and I did pretty well in a few different sports.
Tell us about the build-up to this in Australia, because Australia's a big sporting country, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. We all grow up wanting to be excel in sport. Sport's a massive part of the culture, and at school I grew up in an era where it became predominant. It wasn't always the case. We weren't always successful at sport, and that was the main reason for developing the Institute of Sport, and the main reason for the government at the time for really creating a big initiative for young people to get involved in sport, to do well across a broad range of sports and activities.
It's interesting, isn't it, Jim, that America, Canada, Australia, there's certain countries really are sports fanatics, and some countries don't seem to be bothering as much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in the UK we're fortunate enough to have a history of sport. The sporting establishments in the UK have been around for a long time, and they've definitely taken sport to a new level in terms of organisation and infrastructure. And I think that the sporting culture, as you said, definitely in Australia and the USA as well, is very competitive, and it's a competitive environment and competitive culture, and everyone excels to be the best they can be, and it brings the best out of people definitely in the sporting world.
Jim, looking at football in England, it's been taken over by money. I used to be a big football fan years ago, and I went off it because I felt that money was taking over. I honestly believe that most players, and I don't talk about people, some people who, like Steven Gerrard, are passionate, but there are most players don't give a damn who they play for. They give a damn of what their wage is. Is it like that in Australia, or have I got that wrong?
I think to a level. I think the thing is the Premier League over here now has created, all over the world, the Premier League is famous, and a lot of young players aspire to play in the Premiership. I think that part of that motivation at a certain age is the financial rewards there, and it is filtering through, definitely even in Australia. And whenever I go back and run camps and do coaching clinics, it seems to be more and more young people are fascinated with the opportunity to play in the Premiership or professional football, thinking that's going to be an easy ticket, really. And what they don't realise, it is very difficult to get to the very top, and there's a lot of people out there that are playing football at different levels that don't get paid a great deal of money. So it's a very, very small percentage of footballers who actually get paid the big sums of money and have them, sort of lifestyle that we see on TV. But it is more and more becoming that way, Peter, that's for sure.
What's the standard of football like in Australia?
It's reasonable. It's variable as well. You may get a really talented player, and then you may get someone who is fairly average as well. I think in the UK, everybody aspires to be a footballer at some point in their life, and I think the consistency in the standard in the UK is probably more consistent, more developed. Most people over here can kick a ball about, so to speak. In Australia, you've got some very good players. Under that, you've got a lot of players who wouldn't make a professional standard. So I think you've got a lot more players over here that can play at a very good level. Whereas in Australia, you've got some players who do come through, who are playing here at the moment. You've got your Cahills, you've got your Emersons, and you've got players who've come through like Kuehl in the past. So you do get the odd player here and there that is outstanding as well.
Jim, how far did you get, and what happened?
I did pretty well. I was pretty fortunate. I was to get as far as I did in a short space of time. I was fairly motivated and worked really hard. I squeezed every bit of talent I had and worked really hard. And I got to a level where I could have competed or was available for selection for the national team. Unfortunately for me, I was one of them sort of people that wasn't sure what I wanted to do in sport. I did well in athletics, and I did well in a couple of other disciplines as well. So I tended to train in 3 or 4 disciplines, and I think that took its toll on me physically. Eventually I would get injured and would have to pretty much give everything away. I could have kept participating at a certain level, but it wasn't the level I wanted to participate at. So I think eventually it took its toll on me, and I had a back injury which pretty much cut my career short, which is a shame because I felt it was at a point where I was really beginning to, you know, get to grips with playing the game, and I was really pushing on. So yeah, I did reasonably well, and I'm proud of my achievements. That said, I'm pleased with the way things have gone for me after my playing career ended.
Well, let's stop there because I want to ask you a question on that. I was talking, funny enough, to a gentleman the other day. I won't mention his name because I actually want to do a programme with him, which was fascinating, same as yourself. He was a professional footballer, had an injury, and went into the darkest depression. Luckily has come through it, but could have gone one or two ways, as you must have thought at some stage that it could, couldn't it? You could turn to drink, you could turn to drugs, you could be so depressed. It's like a death, because all of a sudden your dream has been stopped.
Oh, very much so. When it was difficult for me to open up for a long time, and once everything ended, because I've worked a very long time, and growing up, I wasn't the most talented of performers, so it worked really, really hard to get to where I was. And I'd finally pretty much broken through to a good level, and I was running some good times athletically. I was playing well football-wise, and I felt I had a really good chance to kick on and make the Olympic team, amongst other things. And then the injury came along, and what made it worse for me is the Olympics were in Sydney, where I grew up, and I thought this is a good chance for me to go back and show everyone how far I came along. It'd been a long time since I was away, and I thought, what a great way to come back after a few years. And I got injured, and I fell, I don't know if you could call it a depression, but I was very, very down at the time. With that came a lot of other things as well, because it's not just giving up your sport, but also the other things you do, other commercial things I was doing at the time had ended as well, and some businesses I had at the time had fallen apart as well. So it was a very difficult time as well, and I think that it's very difficult for someone out of sport to understand.
Yes, exactly. I could imagine you're right there. Yeah. Was it one day that you said, enough is enough, I've got to pick myself up?
I did eventually, and that took about, say, 2.5, 3 years. It took a long time. It really did, and I felt it was almost like a bereaving. It was like losing a part of myself, and it was almost like a bereaving process. So after about 2.5 years, I said, well, I can just wallow in my self-pity here for the rest of my life, or I can get up, fresh start, and see what I can do with the skills that I've got. And there came a time when I thought, well, enough is enough, really. And, you know, it's a difficult one. I did indulge in probably drinking more than I should have done. And I did also pretty much try and put my head in the sand. And I couldn't watch sport on TV. I couldn't talk about it. I just wanted to be away from it all. Till eventually I thought, well, I've got a lot to give here. It's about time I get up and contribute, and I think that's where it was almost like a rebirth, so to speak. So yeah, it was a big, big turning point for me.
Well, it's interesting, the turning point, because you left us with 2 books and performing coach and Britain's top coach nominee for 2009. So you must have turned a corner very quickly on that one.
I did, and definitely it was around about, say, 2002 where I felt if I carry on going the way I'm going, then I'm not going to really give anything back. So it was at that point there where I actually got back into work. I started teaching as a lecturer, doing some freelance work, supply work, and I got an opportunity at that time as well to play, or to coach, I should say, Berry youth team, and that was a good chance. It was my way back into the sporting world. It was a smallish job at the time in terms of footballing jobs, albeit it was a fantastic place to work, and I kind of redeveloped myself there.